What is going on, everybody? And in this video, we're providing you a state of the market and stock picks for June 1st, 2022. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, consider subscribing, as I do provide daily and weekly updates to get you prepared for the day and the week ahead. Now let's get right into what essentially the meat of the topic today, which was the fact that Biden met with Powell today in a closed door meeting. Though through the press secretary, we did find out that in that meeting, Biden was essentially backing anything that Powell was going to essentially come up with, all the tools necessary to help back him. Now, being said, he sounded really concerned. Now, this wasn't the press secretary himself. This was an individual from BlackRock that was speaking on behalf of the situation, and he didn't sound too reassuring in a lot of different things he said. It actually is what took down the market briefly from this top range this morning. One thing I'll say, technical wise, I said we needed to reclaim this 2126 mark. Going into today, we really flirted with that, and we kind of pulled above this. The big thing to understand here, though, with these higher time frames, is that they aren't going to be exact. So really, the market has been struggling around this area. We tagged it last week on Friday. Now we're kind of flirting with it today. We do have beige book tomorrow. That's going to provide insight into the next meeting. We're expecting a 50-point basis move on every meeting from here on out. The fact that they kind of came out, the BlackRock guy kind of came out and started talking about inflation and where it was at, was really kind of concerning. Now, is that going to lead to a documentation tomorrow talking about a 75-point basis move, or two 50-point basis moves back to back? We're kind of seeing that in the next following meetings, but are we going to load them up to a 100-point basis move coming into this next meeting? Is that how concerning things are getting? If it does, this thing could again start selling back off. It's really hard to say. There's new information. And with the market being so sensitive on what's going on with inflation and them trying to catch inflation, yes, we're all well aware Powell should have started dialing back a bit last year, but he didn't. Now we're playing catch up. So we really have to see how the market's going to take it. But right now, we're kind of at a critical level. So really, we need to see if we open up, where we open up tomorrow. Do we open back below the 41.16 mark? Then we could potentially start selling back off, back down, potentially to a higher low. I don't really see us going all the way back down to 38.93. If that is the case, we could potentially tag the 4K mark and then make that a higher low and start pushing up. Again, it's going to be a choppy push back up nonetheless, no matter really what happens. We don't want this thing to go purely parabolic and then elevator down and flush down. We don't want that. You've seen that here. We've had this 3-day push, then flush. We don't want these massive pushes because we get flushes right after. So you want to have a nice gradual push up that's more bullish than having these parabolic moves and these elevator down moves. Again, we have to see how we open. If we do open tomorrow, again, we could flush a little bit, just going into in preparation. The key is again, where are we landing? Ultimately, this was the monthly close. Today we closed above this key mark. This was a huge wick, and this is what's kind of funny. If you look at the monthly here, this pretty much sums up what this here has been like. It's been nothing but wicks. Massive sell-off. We dipped below the 20 and then straight wicked right back up to close just above it. So it's been a very wild and crazy year, to say the least. The fact that this whole candle flickered like this and essentially wicked on both sides sums up the whole year. This could have been the bottom. It very well could. I mean, if you look at something we talked about, we're looking at about the 20 points. And I kind of have talked about that theory about why I feel the 20 point was essentially a 75 point basis move. So you got close to about 21%. Is that what it's going to be? So anytime if 75 points is mentioned, will we revisit this point here? Or 100 point basis would be another 5%. So you're looking at 25%. So you're looking more at the stronger support of the 200 EMA weekly down here at the 3,600 essentially. So that is really what is key on how we proceed tomorrow. Again, if it wasn't for that meeting today, I think we could have actually done potentially better. Again, I think if we come in at 50-point basis or anything like that, I don't think any of those kind of numbers will actually be referenced tomorrow. It's more of the lingo and that report on if more action needs to be taken, how hawkish will the Fed be? If that report at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is really hawkish, again, as long as it's in the constraints of that 50-point basis move, I think we could potentially start pushing up. It could start grinding, could pop and start running. Again, if it's 75 or greater, I think, again, we could potentially start selling off, making potentially a higher low. But I don't see us really coming back down to this level unless there's some really bad news. Again, the individual I was talking from BlackRock today, he didn't sound very reassuring. He sounded like things were just going to continue to get really, really bad. Again, though, the stock market isn't going to be the economy in general, right? It has some references, right? It does do like the initial sticker shock movement on any kind of news in the market, and then after that, it recovers and it continues to try to push up. So being said, tapering will stop tomorrow, bond purchasing and stuff like that, slowly. So we'll see how that plays out. They're trying to slowly let the market back on its feet, kind of doing a training wheels thing here, and we're seeing how the market's going to react. And so tomorrow will be that day where tapering will slowly start being tapered off. See where rates are sitting, and then we'll kind of take it from that point and how the market's going to go from here. Now we have broken trend here. Are we going to sell? My concern here tomorrow is if we open flat tomorrow, that we could sell off. Because this could be just a hard ceiling. You get the 50 EMA daily. First time I think we've tested that in a minute as well. Yeah, it's the first time we've retested that in a while. You're going to get a pretty hard rejection. It could bring us back down to the 20 and then try to potentially rip back up from that point. Again, the 20 EMA monthly, it's kind of hard to judge exactly where that's going to be. Again, you can float around there, which is kind of where the 20 and the 50 are sitting at on the daily. So you can float around this and still be considered right around that 20 EMA monthly. How we close this week could be extremely, it could be a cause of concern. Essentially, we want to try to get back over that 50 by the end of the week, in my mind, or maybe we float here for a week and then chop up. But ultimately, I think, again, bad news is pretty much done for this point, aside from the new bad news we already have, or the old bad news that we already have. So we'll have to see. And one interesting thing to see is that Bitcoin started pushing back up. I think Bitcoin, again, if we open up above this 31, say roughly around 32, I think this thing can really start ripping back up, back to the upside on this. I think we've hit a bottom of Bitcoin, and the fact that Bitcoin is running with the way the market is and the concern on inflation. Again, it's been a quote unquote inflation hedge. We'll have to see how much of a hedge that really is going into everything. And again, with all the other stuff I've mentioned before about underlying payment system, everything is changing over to crypto slowly but surely. People will eventually understand that and see that, but we shall see going forward. Going into tomorrow, Tesla, it is hitting that this top wedge here. I really want to see it. It did close above the 20 on the monthly again, just like the market did. If this does break out, this could make a pretty strong run to the upside. Again, you get a pretty clean shot up here to the 837, but from that point, you're going to start hitting a lot of resistance and could potentially make it up here and just start chopping around until we get that earnings cycle to break up and try to get back to all-time highs on Tesla. So I'm watching that, watching this trend break tomorrow. Again, it's really important to see where we land. If we don't break this, look for possibly a higher low, just like the regular markets. Otherwise, we could potentially sell back off to the bottom range here, or potentially even revisit that 50. We never actually touched that 50, even on the general market. We haven't done that either, so I want to watch that. But it's good to see strength. Apple, same thing. It's good to see strength back above. Big thing here is this needs to hold this 20 and try to push up. Again, you're going to have strong resistance at 156. But we again want to see how we do open above for that one as well. But it's good to see some strength back in tech, again, because we haven't really seen that in a while. Google got rejected pretty hard here towards the end of the day. Again, first time retesting this, which it hasn't done. Had a break, but never actually retested a gap down. First retest could start selling tomorrow. A big one today was there's some good numbers about Amazon customers. So we have to see there's that 20-to-1 split coming up as well. It could potentially be fueling this. But it had a big, massive rip day. So we're really kind of watching this 2313 mark tomorrow. Can it hold that? And if so, can we push up to that 50 EMA monthly? And once it tests that, again, it's been the first time it's hit that in a very long time. If it does hit it, it should get rejected pretty hard initially. And then from that point, see where it is. Again, a lot of overhead resistance from this point. So want to keep an eye on that. Banks. Let's take a look at the banks. This is what's important and something to watch. This thing broke out of the wedge today, and I thought it was really going to tank. It actually pushed right back into it. So you want to watch this ascending wedge tomorrow, because typically, again, ascending wedge, you're going to have a pretty heavy correction back down to the downside. It kind of lines up with everything tomorrow. We had that initial break, then it popped right back in. It's kind of squeezing again. So we want to see if this does. Again, if it does break, these things normally retrace close to about 75% of the original where the base is. So you could get a pullback down to 125 pop potentially on this thing. Not saying, again, we're going to go back and create a new low. Could be creating a higher low, which is good to see if you are doing a full reversal. So again, I'm kind of looking to see if that does break tomorrow. Again, banks are going to be important. It's going to hold the general index up in general. So I want to see what that does. Again, banks, most of the banks really didn't do much. I think we're really waiting on that report tomorrow. Bank of America, same thing. It's holding this top wedge. We want to see how that does play out as well. It's more of an upward channel here as opposed to any kind of ascending wedge. So you want to see if that does break down. Goldman Sachs. Just has it could potentially have a ascending wedge here as well. Just a bigger ascending wedge. So really, banks are something you're going to have to really watch. On the daily, they do look good. They look like they're all breaking out of the wedge and shooting back up. On the daily, it does look like ascending wedge right there. Actually go to BAC, ascending wedge on the daily is what you're seeing there. It's exactly what you're seeing there. So you definitely have to be careful on that. If that does decide to dump tomorrow, again, it's a good setup for tomorrow. You have an event, so it's all leading into that event tomorrow. So banks would be number one to watch. Again, Amazon would be a good one to watch again tomorrow to see where that is, where that plays out. Tesla, Apple, again, ones to watch. Watch your industry leaders tomorrow. Again, we're not out of the woods. The market still is in a really bad spot, and it didn't help that the BlackRock guy came out and was talking about inflation, how it was getting carried away. Being said, again, every landing we have every morning, gap down, stay flat, or gap up, which we haven't really seen much of a gap up lately, could potentially lead to something bigger or more selling off. And again, tomorrow, it really depends on where we land. Even though we did close here today, it depends on how we land in the morning. If we land back down here, going to see some more selling and probably pretty heavy selling tomorrow. Again, going into the FOMC meeting. Again, there's not going to be any clear shot to all-time highs unless the war ends or something like that. We haven't had any positive news. If we do get positive news, we can get more of a rally. But these 3-day rallies are probably about as much as we're going to get before anything else. And we're probably going to get more chop. I guarantee we'll get more chop for the rest of the year, potentially. So nonetheless, if you made it this far, I appreciate you. I know this market is not easy to navigate. It's been definitely changing on a dime. New events and something occur, and then the market sentiment changes, and we keep selling off again. Again, the market's designed to go up, but this year's definitely been a rough year. And realize that the market doesn't always go up, and that we have years like this. We have years of chop, and this could be going longer than even this year. So just be mindful of that. And this is why I stick with industry leaders, because if anything does turn, they'll be the first to turn. So nonetheless, go ahead and drop a like button. And until next time, I'll see you guys